In the dim glow of flickering torchlight, the medieval world breathed with a rhythm entirely its own, a rhythm steeped in scents, sounds, and sensations that would feel alien to the modern sleeper listening to the soft hum of distant traffic outside their window today. Because in the Middle Ages, hygiene was not merely a habit or a daily routine, but a complicated blend of belief, woven so tightly into the fabric of life that one could not truly separate the people from the smells, nor the smells from the streets. And as we drift slowly back into that world one where cobblestones glistened with the remnants of last night's refuse and morning prayers, mingled with the earthy odor of unwashed wool, we begin to understand how deeply different the medieval relationship to cleanliness really was, starting with the simple reality that most people did not bathe regularly, not because they rejected cleanliness, but because the structure of medieval society, the climate, the workload, and the limited access to heated water meant that a true bath was a luxury saved for festivals, weddings, or rare days of leisure. Yet, despite this long-standing rumor that people never bathed, the truth is more nuanced. For medieval folks washed more than most imagined. They simply did not wash in the way we understand today. Instead of long, luxurious baths filled with perfumed oils, they used basins of water collected from wells or rivers, splashing their faces, rinsing their hands, wiping their bodies with cloths dipped in warm water, and doing just enough to feel refreshed. For heating water was laborious, wood was precious, and many peasants simply could not afford to spare the time or resources for full immersion, especially when winters were brutally cold and summers demanded physical labor from dawn to dusk. And so the scents of the medieval world were layered like the pages of an old book, sweat beneath wool, herbs tucked into belts, smoke from hearth fires clinging to hair, and the sour tang of tanned leather riding the wind from distant workshops, while inside small timber homes, families shared the same space with livestock through the colder months, believing correctly that animals provided a bit of warmth, but unintentionally creating an atmosphere that modern noses would find overwhelming. And in towns and cities, hygiene faced an entirely different set of challenges. As narrow streets struggled to hold the swelling population and waste systems were rudimentary, chamber pots were emptied into gutters, drains led to open ditches, and the stench of raw sewage drifting through marketplaces was something most medieval citizens learned simply to ignore, for it was a normal part of life. And yet, despite this filth, they were not entirely careless. Town officials implemented rules requiring residents to clean the areas outside their homes. Barbers served as early hygienists by trimming hair and removing parasites, and many people wore layers of linen under their clothing specifically because linen absorbed sweat and could be washed more easily than wool, meaning that although a person might not bathe fully, their undergarments were regularly laundered, which made a significant difference in perceived cleanliness. Even the wealthy, who enjoyed the luxury of wooden bath barrels, scented soaps made from animal fats, and exotic perfumes imported at great expense, did not bathe daily, but when they did bathe, it was almost a ceremonial moment of stillness in a life otherwise ruled by obligation. And yet, as much as baths were valued, a growing fear began to spread across medieval Europe, rooted partly in religion and partly in developing medical theories. Many believed that hot water opened the pores, making the body vulnerable to disease carried in the air. A belief that grew stronger after outbreaks of plague swept through the continent, turning bathhouses from social hubs into suspected sources of infection. And so, slowly, public bathing declined, even among those who had previously considered it essential. Meanwhile, in rural cottages, families continued using simple methods: herbal rinses made from rosemary, sage, and lavender, which they believed purified the body and kept away evil spirits, while mothers taught children to wash their faces each morning, because cleanliness was associated with good manners and moral discipline. Though this moral emphasis varied widely by region and era, even hair care held its own unique rituals. 4 combs were prized possessions used not only to style, but also to remove lice, while oils rendered from animal fat were worked into dry hair to soften it and reduce flakes. Yet these practices, however normal to them, would smell distinctly unusual to someone from the modern world. And as we peel back the curtain further, we find that dental hygiene in the medieval era was both surprisingly effective and alarmingly limited, with people using twigs, powders made from crushed charcoal or herbs, and cloths to scrub their teeth, believing that bad breath indicated imbalance in the body's fluids. And so they chewed mint, fennel seeds, or parsley after meals. Small habits that did offer freshness, even if they lacked the deeper cleansing of modern toothpaste. And in terms of clothing hygiene, while outer garments were rarely washed due to the risk of shrinking or damaging the fabric, linens, sheets, and undergarments were soaked, scrubbed, and sun-dried frequently, which helped maintain a basic level of cleanliness despite the lack of daily baths. Although this did little to prevent the ever-present challenge of fleas, lice, and other pests that thrived in crowded environments, which led many medieval households to place herbs in bedding, sew bundles of fragrant plants into garments, or hang sweet-smelling branches by the door as both a deterrent and a spiritual safeguard against illness. But perhaps the most striking aspect of medieval hygiene is how differently they understood the relationship between cleanliness and health. For while modern societies prioritize sterilization, sanitation, and germ theory, medieval people viewed cleanliness through the lens of humoral balance, the belief that the body's IV fluids had to remain in harmony. For a person to stay healthy, and so washing was less about removing dirt and more about restoring equilibrium, cooling heated passions, or warding off the influence of corrupted air. And as we imagine a villager dipping a cloth into a basin, wiping the sweat from their brow after hours in the fields, or a noblewoman sitting patiently as her servant pours warm water over her hands and arms, we begin to see the medieval world not as dirty in the careless sense often portrayed, but as a society with its own structured, meaningful system of hygiene, different, yes, but intentional in its own way. And as our mind drifts deeper into this candlelit reality, the creak of wooden floors beneath bare feet, the soft scrape of a comb through tangled hair, the rhythmic splash of water poured from a clay jug, and the muted sounds of people settling into straw-filled mattresses create a soothing symphony of the past, reminding us that history is not merely a collection of uncomfortable facts, but a living tapestry of human adaptation, shaped by environment, culture, belief, and necessity. And in this quiet journey into what medieval hygiene truly looked like, its rituals, habits, challenges, and small comforts, we discover a world far richer and far more human than the exaggerated legends would have us believe. In the slow, unhurried rhythm of medieval life, hygiene unfolded not as a single grand ritual, but as a collection of small, deliberate habits that shaped each day. And to understand this world more deeply, we must step into the early morning stillness of a medieval home, where the first light of dawn filtered through shuttered windows made of oiled cloth or thin slices of horn, casting a muted glow across uneven wooden floors and the faint silhouettes of families beginning their routines. For the moment, a medieval household stirred awake. Hygiene, though simple by modern standards, played a subtle yet ever-present role in these early hours, starting with the customary washing of hands and face, a practice rooted both in religious symbolism and practicality, since many believed that cleansing away the residue of sleep helped purify the spirit and prepare the mind for prayer. And even the poorest homes kept a small basin of water near the doorway or hearth to perform this morning cleansing, though the water itself was often cold and drawn from nearby wells long before sunrise. Yet, despite the simplicity of this ritual, it held profound significance, especially in a world where illness was poorly understood and people viewed cleanliness not merely as a physical necessity, but as a moral and spiritual duty, a way of presenting oneself as orderly, respectful, and aligned with the divine. And while such washings were brief, perhaps a few splashes of water on the face, a quick rub of the hands with a rough linen cloth, maybe a rinse of the mouth with mint-infused water, they formed the backbone of medieval hygiene. Small acts rooted in generations of tradition. As the morning unfolded, other routines followed, particularly for women, who carried much of the responsibility for maintaining cleanliness within the household. They swept dirt floors with bundled twig brooms, shook out bedding stuffed with straw or wool, and laid linens across open windows to freshen them in the sun. For sunlight was believed to have purifying qualities long before the concept of bacteria was understood. And this belief, though based on spiritual reasoning, nonetheless provided a real hygienic benefit, as ultraviolet light helped kill parasites and reduce odors. Meanwhile, children were taught from an early age to wash before meals, a practice reinforced not only by mothers but by church teachings that emphasized the virtues of tidiness, modesty, and discipline. For cleanliness was often associated with moral character, and a child who appeared filthy or disheveled might be judged as stubborn, lazy, or lacking respect for social norms. Even though bathing in the modern sense was rare, yet this focus on visible cleanliness explains why many medieval people were far more attentive to grooming than legends suggest. Men trimmed beards and hair with the help of barbers. Women carefully braided and pinned their hair to reduce lice, and even peasants used simple combs carved from bone or wood to keep tangles at bay. Beyond the household, hygiene took on a different rhythm in towns and villages, where communal life introduced new challenges and opportunities. Marketplaces bustled with people brushing shoulders, animals trotting through the streets, merchants shouting to attract customers, and grains, vegetables, and textiles displayed openly in stalls. all accompanied by the unavoidable mix of smells that characterized medieval urban life: baked bread from the ovens, fresh herbs crushed underfoot, animal dung, smoke from forge fires, and the persistent scent of tallow used in candles and lamps. And yet, despite this earthy atmosphere, city authorities did attempt to maintain standards of cleanliness, issuing regulations that required residents to sweep outside their doors weekly, restricting dumping of waste in central streets, and even hiring public workers, known as rakers, to clear refuse from gutters. Though these efforts were often inconsistent and depended largely on local leadership and weather conditions, but the presence of guilds also influenced hygiene, as skilled trades like tanning, butchering, and blacksmithing operated under strict rules dictating when and where waste could be disposed. And despite the odors associated with these industries, the structure they provided prevented total chaos from overtaking medieval towns. Meanwhile, personal hygiene habits varied widely depending on social class, season, and profession. Shepherds washed less frequently simply because they lived outdoors and had limited access to water, while millers, constantly covered in flour dust, washed their faces and hands, often to avoid irritation. Nobles, by contrast, enjoyed more refined rituals, using scented oils, rosewater, and fine soaps imported from Italy, Spain, or the Middle East. Though these luxuries were expensive and reserved for special occasions, and in castle chambers, servants warmed water for their lords, filled wooden tubs with herbs like chamomile or rosemary, and prepared soft linen towels. Yet, even for the rich, daily bathing was unusual, reserved for feast days or periods of rest, and instead they relied heavily on perfume sachets, fragrant gloves, and undergarments to maintain a pleasant scent. But the most fascinating aspect of medieval hygiene lies in the stark contrast between intention and environment. For, while people cared deeply about appearing clean and smelling acceptable, their surroundings were shaped by forces beyond their control: limited sanitation infrastructure, agricultural labor, harsh winters, and communal living conditions, all of which created a world where cleanliness meant something entirely different from the sterile, soap-scented standards of today. Another essential part of medieval hygiene involved the constant battle against lice, fleas, and mites, which affected all classes without discrimination. Noble women might have had gilded combs and elaborate hairstyles, but these elaborate braids often concealed lice just as effectively as a peasant's wool cap. And so many people resorted to boiling clothes, using herbal set, or shaving heads entirely during summer months, particularly among monks, soldiers, and laborers. And though medieval people lacked the modern understanding of parasitic life cycles, they recognized patterns, noticing that linen was easier to deluce than wool, and that certain herbs deterred pests better than others, which is why bunches of lavender, mint, wormwood, and rosemary adorned many homes, serving dual functions: masking odors and discouraging insects. Even bedding was treated regularly, with mattresses aired in sunlight, straw replaced seasonally, and blankets beaten vigorously to shake out dust and pests, creating a surprisingly consistent routine of cleanliness despite the limitations of the era. As we drift deeper into this world, we see that hygiene was often shaped by religious belief, particularly in monasteries. where monks practiced regular hand-washing before prayer, maintained communal bathhouses, and followed detailed rules regarding cleanliness, though these varied by order. For example, some monastic communities bathed weekly, while others discouraged full bathing except for illness or special feasts. Yet all agreed that washing hands, face, and feet held symbolic purity, and this emphasis shaped broader society as church teachings filtered into villages and towns, encouraging people to wash before meals, maintain clean clothing, and perform acts of bodily care as part of their devotion, making hygiene both a spiritual and practical ritual woven into daily life. Yet, despite this, public bathhouses, once lively centers of social life, fell into decline over the centuries due to fears surrounding disease, particularly after outbreaks of plague, leading many communities to abandon communal bathing entirely, replacing it with increased reliance on dry washing, perfumes, clean linens, and herbal remedies, marking a shift that would influence European hygiene habits for generations. When we step back and view the medieval world as a whole, we begin to see that hygiene was not neglected but reframed, shaped by environment, belief, resources, and necessity. People did not live in filth out of carelessness, but because their understanding of health and cleanliness followed different principles rooted in a desire for balance, ritual, and order, rather than sterilization. And as we imagine a medieval family settling into their nightly routine, wiping their feet at the threshold, brushing crumbs from the table, washing hands with cool water before evening prayers, laying herbs beside their beds to sweeten the air, and finally drifting into sleep beneath linen sheets scented with sunlight and smoke, we begin to understand the quiet humanity of their world, a world imperfect, fragrant, earthy, and deeply alive, yet filled with intentions that echo our own desire for comfort, routine, and a sense of cleanliness, even in the humblest of circumstances. As the medieval world eased into the quieter hours of the evening, hygiene shifted from morning routines and daytime necessities to a slower, more contemplative rhythm, one grounded in the simple yet meaningful habits that helped people wind down after a long day of labor, prayer, and survival. And to truly understand this nighttime routine, we must picture the soft dimming of daylight over fields, villages, and stone-walled towns, where the last embers of sunset cast an amber hue across thatched roofs, scattering light along narrow streets still damp from recent washing or scattered with hay. And inside humble homes, families gathered around hearth fires that crackled softly, filling the air with the familiar mix of smoke, warm bread, simmering stews, and the earthy aroma of woolen clothing hung to dry, creating a calming atmosphere where hygiene once again quietly emerged, not as a chore, but as a restorative ritual, beginning with the simple washing of hands and feet enact, especially in societies deeply connected to the land. For peasants returning from the fields, washing feet offered a moment of relief after hours spent walking on soil or stone, and the cool or lukewarm water drawn from clay jugs eased aches and rinsed away dust, while the act of cleansing one's hands before evening meals became a gentle tradition passed down through generations, linking cleanliness to hospitality, respect, and spiritual readiness, since many believed that ending the day in a state of tidiness aligned the body and soul with the natural order God intended, even in wealthier homes and small manor halls, where servants assisted with daily tasks. The evening washing ritual was observed with quiet dignity. Noble families used copper or pewter basins placed on carved wooden stands, where servants poured warmed water infused with mint, rose petals, or thyme over their lord's hands, letting the fragrant steam rise softly into the air, while embroidered linen towels were offered for drying, creating an atmosphere of tranquility that helped transition the household into restful nighttime hours. And though these scenes appear refined in contrast to peasant life, they shared the same underlying principles that cleanliness at day's end brought peace, clarity, and a sense of order to the mind, a momentary escape from the hardships of medieval existence. And as these rituals unfolded, many homes, rich and poor, alike into their bedding in preparation for sleep, shaking out blankets to remove dust, brushing straw mattresses with bundled twigs, and placing fresh herbs like lavender, sage, or sweet woodruff beneath pillows, believing they encouraged pleasant dreams, deterred pests, and filled the resting space with soothing aromas that calmed the body. Across monasteries and abbeys, where routines were governed by strict schedules, evening hygiene carried an even deeper spiritual significance. For monks followed detailed rules outlining when to wash, how to handle garments, and how to maintain communal spaces so that the monastic environment remained pure and orderly, reflecting their devotion. Before complines, the last prayer of the day monks washed their hands and faces in silence, sometimes using communal stone basins fed by diverted streams, their white or black robes rustling softly in the dim candlelight as they prepared for rest. And though these practices were simple, the quiet unity of the community made even basic cleansing feel sacred, reinforcing the belief that cleanliness prevented spiritual disorder as much as it prevented physical discomfort. And in some monasteries, brothers responsible for maintaining hygiene-related areas, such as washhouses or bath chambers, played an important role in ensuring water supplies remained clean and accessible, even if full baths were infrequent and reserved mostly for feast days or seasonal celebrations. As twilight deepened and darkness spread across the medieval landscape, towns took on a different character entirely. Their narrow streets, illuminated only by lanterns, moonlight, and the occasional glow of hearth fire escaping through shutter cracks. And hygiene, though less visible, remained intertwined with nightly routines. In taverns and inns, travelers washed before meals, rinsing hands in basins provided by innkeepers, who understood that cleanliness encouraged guests to stay longer and feel more comfortable, even if the basins were shared and the water reused, a practice that may seem unsanitary today but felt perfectly normal then. And in urban homes, families employed small strategies to maintain nighttime cleanliness, sweeping floors to prevent pests, storing leftover food in cool corners, or hanging it high to protect it from rodents, and placing bowls of aromatic herbs or vinegar near windows to purify the air according to medieval beliefs, which held that foul smells carried disease, an idea rooted partly in superstition, yet partly in observation, since bad odors often did coincide with unhealthy conditions. Another significant aspect of nighttime hygiene concerned clothing. for medieval people rarely slept in the garments they wore during the day. Instead, they preferred to remove outer layers, hang them to air, and sleep in lighter linen chemises or tunics that absorbed moisture and allowed skin to breathe, resulting in a surprisingly practical sleepwear system that helped maintain bedding cleanliness, despite the lack of modern laundry routines. And this habit also reflects the medieval awareness of body comfort and nighttime hygiene, for linen, with its cooling and absorbent qualities, served as the central fabric for underclothing across Europe, and its frequent washing did more to maintain personal cleanliness than bathing alone. And though peasants often owned fewer garments than nobles, they adhered to similar principles, understanding instinctively that clean linen contributed to health, comfort, and restful sleep inside the walls of castles. Evening hygiene acquired another dimension altogether, shaped by architecture and security concerns. After supper, nobles often washed their hands in bowls of warm scented water brought by servants, who carried towels folded over their arms, while private chambers were prepared for sleep with carefully arranged bedding, perfumed cushions, and braziers used to warm rooms and dry linens. Though these fires also introduced the constant risk of accidental blazes, a danger that made cleanliness around hearth areas essential. And in these grand halls, where tapestries hung heavily on stone walls and floors were covered with rushes or woven mats, maintaining hygiene required regular replacement of floor coverings, scattering fresh herbs among the rushes to combat odors, and brushing debris from corners where mice hid, demonstrating that even among the rich, keeping the living environment clean demanded continual effort. As the night deepened and the world outside fell quiet except for the distant howling of wolves or the soft clucking of roosting chickens, personal grooming sometimes continued, particularly among individuals preparing for sleep. Some combed their hair to prevent tangling. Others rinsed their mouths with herbal mixtures to freshen breath, and many drank warmed cider ale, or herbal infusions believed to calm the stomach and aid digestion, a vital concern in a time when digestive discomfort was common due to coarse diets, uneven food preservation, and limited medical understanding. And in this way, nighttime hygiene blended seamlessly with personal well-being practices, creating a peaceful end to long, exhausting days. Ultimately, the medieval evening, with its gentle routines of washing, tending to bedding, freshening linens, preparing meals, and creating a clean, restful space, reveals a society deeply aware of its physical needs, even if it lacked the modern framework of germ theory and sterilization. Cleanliness for them was not about perfection, but about balancing the body with the environment, balancing comfort with hardship, and balancing daily labor with rituals of rest that brought closure to each day. And as we picture a family settling into sleep, the father extinguishing the last candle, the mother whispering a prayer, children burrowing into blankets scented faintly with herbs, and the soft crackle of the hearth gently fading, we find a tranquil, almost meditative vision of medieval Litha world, shaped by simplicity, rhythm, and small acts of care that, though far removed from our modern routines, carry a quiet beauty of their own, offering a soothing glimpse into a past where even the humblest nighttime habits reflected a profound desire for comfort, cleanliness, and peace. In the quiet expanse of medieval Europe, where rolling hills met dense forests and distant villages dotted the landscape like small islands of human resilience, the concept of public hygiene took on an entirely different shape from what we understand today. And as we shift our perspective from private, home-centered cleanliness to the broader systems or lack thereof that governed sanitation in towns, markets, roadsides, and communal spaces, we begin to uncover a world shaped not by engineering or germ theory, but by tradition, necessity, and simple human effort. For medieval public hygiene was a delicate balance between routine and chaos, order and nature, effort and inevitability. And nowhere was this balance more visible than in the bustling heart of medieval towns, where narrow streets, tightly packed timber houses, and constant foot traffic created a dense environment that required continuous management. In most towns, streets were often uneven, muddy, and lined with gutters that carried rainwater and sometimes much more down the sloping path toward rivers or ditches. And because pavements were rare, many communities laid down layers of straw or reeds to absorb moisture and reduce slipperiness. Though these temporary coverings quickly decayed, spilled grains, soot, and refuse from nearby shops, creating an ever-changing mixture that demanded constant attention. And while modern cities rely on intricate underground sewage systems, medieval towns depended heavily on human labor to maintain public hygiene, with workers known as rakers or scavengers tasked with clearing streets, especially in wealthier or more organized towns. Although their effectiveness varied based on weather, population, and available resources, despite the challenges, medieval communities did attempt to regulate public sanitation through laws that required households to keep the areas in front of their homes clean, mandating the weekly removal of garbage and ensuring that waste was dumped only at designated locations, though enforcement was often inconsistent and depended on the motivations of local officials. And yet, it would be a mistake to assume medieval people were indifferent to public cleanliness, for they recognized its importance intuitively, even if they lacked scientific explanations. Many towns prohibited the disposal of waste near wells to prevent contamination, restricted tanners and butchers from polluting market areas, and implemented fines for those who allowed animals to roam freely and foul the streets, showing an early awareness of environmental hygiene. And though these rules struggled against practical reality, they nonetheless represented a genuine societal effort to maintain order in public spaces beyond regulations. Daily life itself played a significant role in shaping public hygiene. For medieval towns were not merely places of residence, but centers of vibrant activity where farmers, merchants, craftsmen, travelers, and animals all converged. Livestock such as pigs, goats, horses, and chickens were common sights in the streets, as people relied on them for food, labor, and trade, and their presence inevitably contributed to public waste, forcing townsfolk to adapt through sweeping, seasonal cleanings, and the strategic placement of pits or trenches designed to divert runoff during rains. Meanwhile, marketplaces, perhaps the most heavily trafficked areas, were hotspots of both vitality and disorder, filled with the noise of hawkers advertising their goods, the clinking of iron tools, the earthy scents of produce, and the pungent aroma of fish laid out on wooden boards. all of which created sensory environments far removed from modern expectations of cleanliness. Yet, medieval people navigated them with ease, familiarity shaping their comfort more than sanitation standards ever could. One of the most significant challenges to public hygiene came from waste management, particularly human waste, which varied greatly depending on location. In rural areas, people used simple latrine pits dug near their homes or designated places away from water sources. And in some villages, communal privies were built over flowing streams to carry waste away naturally. Though this method posed obvious risks if done upstream from other settlements. In more developed towns, especially by the later Middle Ages, some buildings had garderobes, protruding wooden or stone chambers with drop shafts that emptied into cesspits, which required periodic emptying by workers known as gong farmers, whose labor, though unpleasant and dangerous due to toxic fumes, was vital for maintaining sanitation. And these workers often performed their tasks at night when streets were empty, hauling waste outside city walls to bury or dump into designated lands. A practice that, while unsanitary by modern standards, nonetheless prevented cities from becoming completely overwhelmed by accumulating refuse. Even water management played a crucial role in medieval public hygiene, as communities depended heavily on rivers, wells, and rainwater for drinking, cooking, and washing. Many towns built public fountains or cisterns to make water accessible. And although contamination was frequent due to runoff or animals entering waterways, medieval people were not oblivious to dangers. Many boiled water when possible, brewed ale or small beer as safer alternatives, and avoided certain wells known to cause sickness, demonstrating how empirical observation shaped everyday life. And as towns grew, some cities developed rudimentary drainage systems, using stone channels or wooden pipes to direct wastewater away from populated areas, representing early engineering efforts that laid the groundwork for more advanced systems. Centuries later, public bathhouses also played a notable role in hygiene for much of the Middle Ages, serving as social centers where people gathered to wash, relax, and exchange news. And in many towns, bathhouses were lively hubs of community life, offering heated tubs, steam rooms, and even massage services. Yet their popularity fluctuated over time, especially as fears of disease increased, eventually leading to their decline. Though their earlier existence demonstrates that medieval society valued cleanliness far more than commonly assumed. These bathhouses, often heated by large furnaces and supplied with water from nearby rivers, represented impressive feats of organization, requiring firewood, attendance, and constant cleaning to maintain. Though their environment, crowded and humid, also contributed to the belief that they spread illness during plague outbreaks, prompting many cities to shut them down entirely. But the heart of medieval public hygiene was not found in regulations, structures, or services. It was found in the daily habits of ordinary people who adapted to their surroundings with resilience and resourcefulness. Women scrubbed the entrances of their homes, children fetched water for washing, craftsmen cleaned their stalls at day's end, and travelers carried small personal grooming kits with combs, cloths, and herbs to freshen themselves during long journeys. Even festivals and feast days carried traditions of cleansing. As communities prepared for celebrations by tidying streets, decorating wells with greenery, and freshening public spaces to symbolize renewal and unity. Yet, despite all these efforts, medieval public spaces still bore the unmistakable imprint of a world without modern sanitation, streets that muddied after rain, refuse that accumulated faster than it could be cleared, animals that roamed freely, and scents that blended into a familiar tapestry of daily life. And in this environment, medieval people developed a different relationship with cleanliness, one rooted in practicality, routine rather than rigidity, experience rather than scientific knowledge. And as we walk slowly through this imagined medieval town, listening to the clatter of wooden wheels on uneven streets, the distant bleating of goats, the soft sweep of a broom across dirt, and the low murmur of townsfolk preparing for nightfall, we begin to understand that public hygiene, though far from modern standards, was nonetheless a living system shaped by the rhythms of medieval life, a balance maintained by the constant collective effort of people striving to keep their communities livable, functional, and harmonious within the constraints of their time. In the dim, slow-moving rhythm of medieval life, hygiene extended far beyond the simple act of bathing. It wove itself into customs, beliefs, punishments, routines, and even architecture, shaping how people interacted with each other and how they navigated the world around them. From the moment they woke beneath wool blankets, crawling with the occasional flea, to the quiet hours of night, when candles flickered low and the scent of herbs drifted through wooden homes. Living in an age without running water meant that hygiene decisions were never casual. Every action required effort, firewood, buckets, and time. So people learned to prioritize certain practices over others. Cleaning hands and face was considered essential, even sacred, before meals. Because medieval culture placed enormous emphasis on communal dining, families, servants, guests, and even strangers often ate from the same dishes, dipping into shared bowls. So washing hands was a matter of respect and social etiquette as much as cleanliness. Public fountains, wells, and water troughs became everyday gathering spots, where women filled buckets, children splashed their faces, and travelers paused to rinse away dust from long journeys. Yet these clean water sources were limited, guarded by strict rules, and often contaminated by the very runoff of crowded streets. People did not understand bacteria, but they recognized good water versus bad water, describing taste, odor, clarity, and even spiritual purity. Medieval hygiene was also heavily influenced by class. Wealthy nobles lived surrounded by servants, who maintained personal grooming rituals with surprising refinement. Bath attendants prepared warm tubs with rose petals. Ointments scented with clove or musk softened the skin. Teeth were rubbed with cloth infused with mint or sage. And perfumes masked unpleasant odors in ways that felt luxurious but were still rooted in practicality. Meanwhile, peasants relied on the changing seasons for hygiene opportunities, bathing more in summer and avoiding water in winter, believing that cold exposure weakened the body and made it vulnerable to disease. Their homes were small, smoky, and crowded. Livestock often slept beneath the same roof. So keeping the house clean meant sweeping straw, scattering fragrant herbs to absorb odors, and letting smoke fill the rafters, because smoke itself was believed to purify the air and drive away pests. Hygiene extended to clothing, which acted like a protective layer. People wore linen undergarments close to the skin because linen absorbed sweat and dirt. And since full-body bathing was rare, washing clothes regularly became a symbol of cleanliness. Women tended to this chore at riverbanks, slapping garments against stones, soaking them in lye, and laying them over bushes to dry, gossiping and sharing news as water rushed around them. Lice, fleas, and bedbugs were constant companions across all classes. Rather than seeing them as a major problem, people simply accepted their presence, using combs, scented oils, smoke, and delousing sessions as regular parts of life. Hygiene also intersected with medieval medicine. Physicians, guided by humoral theory, believed the body needed balance and that excessive bathing could open the pores, allowing harmful vapors or miasma to enter. So many doctors discouraged long baths during epidemics or cold months, believing that keeping the body warm, dry, and covered was safer. This medical advice shaped public behavior. When plagues swept through Europe, bathhouses were shut down, street cleaning increased, and people walked around carrying spiced oranges, vinegar-soaked cloths, or pomanders filled with rosemary and lavender to purify the air they breathed. Hygiene even influenced city planning. Some towns developed ordinances requiring residents to sweep the area in front of their homes, while designated workers, gong farmers, and night soil collectors emptied prives and cesspits under the cover of darkness, hauling waste outside city walls. It was grim, dangerous work, yet essential to medieval urban life. Latrines varied dramatically depending on class. Castles had stone garderobes that dropped waist down tall shafts. Monasteries maintained surprisingly efficient drainage systems. Peasants relied on simple pits or shared outdoor facilities, and many townspeople used chamber pots that were emptied into streets with a casual shout of warning. In fact, the phrase "gardi," meaning "watch out for water," was commonly yelled before dumping waste, a practice that reflected both the close living conditions and the casual acceptance of filth in urban spaces. Despite the challenges, medieval people were inventive. They crafted tools like pumice stones, tooth scrapers, ear picks, wooden combs, and even early forms of deodorant made from herbs, vinegar, and crushed flowers. Women took pride in hair care, braiding and oiling their hair, while men trimmed beards to maintain a respectable appearance in church and public gatherings. Monks, bound by rules of cleanliness, often practiced better hygiene than most, washing feet weekly, shaving heads, and bathing more often because monasteries actually built bathhouses, an unexpected contrast to the popular myth of a completely filthy medieval world. Yet, even with all their efforts, the medieval population lived in a landscape where clean and unclean constantly clashed. Animals roamed streets, marketplaces overflowed with waste, and the smell of smoke, sweat, livestock, and outdoor toilets lingered in the air. But within this world, medieval people found comfort in routine combing hair each morning, washing hands before meals, changing linen shirts, sweeping floors, burning herbs, boiling water for baths on festival days, and trusting that these rituals kept them safe, respectable, and spiritually pure. Their version of hygiene may feel strange to modern eyes, yet it was a practical, adaptive system shaped by culture, environment, and necessity, one that reveals how even in the so-called dirty medieval world, people cared deeply about cleanliness in the ways available to them, creating a surprisingly rich and intimate portrait of daily life long before soap dispensers and showers ever existed. As we drift even deeper into the slow and drowsy fabric of medieval life, hygiene reveals itself not as a single habit, but as an entire world of small choices, unspoken rules, and deeply rooted beliefs that shaped how people presented themselves, protected their families, and navigated a landscape where comfort was precious and cleanliness was a constant challenge, especially in an era ruled by the rhythms of nature rather than the conveniences of modern plumbing. In the medieval morning, long before church bells called the town awake, the day usually began with small acts of hygiene. People splashed cold water on their faces from wooden basins, rubbed their eyes with linen cloths, and combed through hair that gathered dust, ash, and sometimes tiny, unwelcome creatures during the night. Combing wasn't just a grooming ritual. It was believed to stimulate the mind, prepare the spirit for prayer, and remove impurities that could cloud judgment. Nobles sat before polished metal mirrors, while servants arranged their hair, braided ribbons, or applied scented oils made from rosemary or bay leaves, giving the wealthy an aroma that masked the natural odors of medieval life. Peasants, meanwhile, relied on simple wooden combs, dipping them in warm water to soften the tangles, and children often lined up each morning while mothers checked their scalps for lice, performing delousing sessions with the same calm practicality as brushing dust off clothing. Medieval homes themselves played a major role in hygiene. Warmth, smoke, and herbs shaped how clean a place felt. Since floors were usually packed earth, families swept them daily, scattering herbs like lavender, mint, thyme, or rosemary, not only for their fragrance, but because people believed sweet smells pushed away disease and evil spirits. These herbs absorbed moisture, masked unpleasant scents, and kept bugs at bay, turning even a poor cottage into a place of comfort and ritual cleanliness. Wealthier households added tapestries and rush mats that were changed regularly, while simpler homes replaced floor rushes each season, laying down fresh layers of straw mixed with dried petals or aromatic leaves. Clothing remained the backbone of medieval hygiene. People judged cleanliness largely by how fresh one's linens looked and smelled. Underclothes made of linen acted as a second skin, absorbing sweat and oils so effectively that many medieval people felt clean simply by changing their undergarments, even if they hadn't bathed for weeks. Washing clothes, however, required labor. Women walked long distances to rivers or wells, scrubbing garments with ash-based lye, beating them against stones, and soaking them in wooden tubs until the fabric regained its lightness. For winter months, clothes were often washed less and instead hung over smoke to kill insects, resulting in the telltale scent of wood smoke that clung to medieval garments. Hygiene also included how people cared for their teeth and mouths. Contrary to myth, medieval Europeans didn't walk around with rotten, blackened teeth. Sugar was rare, so dental hygiene was surprisingly good for many. People used herbal tooth powders made from mint, sage, salt, or crushed charcoal, rubbing them on teeth with lint cloth or small sticks called chew sticks. Mouthwashes made from wine, vinegar, cloves, or sage water were used not only to clean the mouth, but also as a symbol of polite behavior, especially before attending church or feasts. Grooming extended to beards and nails, tunites, and monks kept their beards trimmed, while women shaped their nails with small knives or pumice stones, not for fashion, but because clean hands were associated with good manners and moral character. Bathing, though less frequent, held deeper meaning. Seasonal bathing was common. Spring and summer brought opportunities to wash in rivers or use heated tubs, while festivals such as Easter or Whitsun became traditional times for communities to clean themselves in preparation for holy celebrations. Noble estates often had private bathing rooms, complete with wooden tubs, warm water carried by servants, scented herbs, and even music to relax during long baths. Public bathhouses, when allowed, were lively spaces filled with steam, chatter, and the smell of hot water mingling with herbs. But concerns about disease and morality began to close many bathhouses in later centuries, pushing people toward more private methods of staying reasonably clean. Medieval medical theory shaped hygiene. Scholars believed maintaining balance between hot, cold, wet, and dry kept the body healthy. So many people avoided extremes. Too much bathing was thought to open the pores dangerously, while too little cleaning was believed to trap harmful substances in the body. This delicate mindset created a world where foot washing was considered essential and spiritually meaningful. Washed feet weekly, and nobles offered their guests warm water for washing as a gesture of hospitality and honor. Hygiene also extended into social behavior. Foul smells were associated with sin, poor character, or laziness. So even lower-class individuals tried to stay presentable, brushing off dirt, adjusting clothing, and washing hands before meals. Medieval cities, however, struggled with large-scale hygiene. Narrow streets overflowed with waste, sewage trickled into open gutters, and animals roamed freely, leaving behind messes that blended into the daily scent of urban life. But efforts to control this chaos did exist. Laws fined people for dumping waste improperly. Night soil workers emptied cesspits by moonlight, and towns employed sweepers to keep markets and main streets reasonably clean. Even in the filthiest towns, people understood the importance of order and hygiene, establishing rules, punishments, and routines to prevent disease outbreaks. Across the countryside, hygiene followed nature's rhythm. People washed in streams, bathed during warm months, dried clothes in open air, smoked homes to ward off pests, and relied on herbal knowledge passed down through generations. And through it all, despite the challenges and limitations, medieval people found ways to feel clean, comfortable, and dignified, creating an evolving tapestry of habits and beliefs that shaped their version of daily hygiene. It was a world without our modern conveniences, yet filled with small, meaningful rituals that brought a sense of peace and routine to long, quiet days. Even now, as we imagine the soft crackle of a hearth, the rustle of fresh straw on floors, the scent of herbs in the air, and the echo of water splashing in a wooden basin, the medieval world settles around us like a warm blanket, pulling us gently into its slow, sleepy embrace. As we move into the next chapter of this slow, sleepy journey through medieval life, the concept of hygiene stretches beyond the private routines of individuals and into the broader world of public spaces, community habits, and the quiet social rules that shaped how people lived together in towns, villages, and busy market hubs, revealing an entire system built on practicality, necessity, and beliefs that today feel both strange and fascinating. Medieval towns were living organisms, crowded, noisy, messy, and always shifting. Yet within this seemingly chaotic environment, people developed their own forms of order, routines that preserved a sense of cleanliness in ways that suited their world. The day often began with the sweeping of streets and the opening of market stalls. Towns employed designated street cleaners who pushed debris toward gutters, while shopkeepers swept their doorways to attract customers, knowing that a clean entrance implied good business and trustworthy goods. Market squares were cleaned early in the morning before crowds arrived, while butchers washed their stalls with buckets of water drawn from nearby fountains, a crude yet essential practice that prevented foul smells from driving customers away. Public water sources were the backbone of communal hygiene. Wells, fountains, and springs served as major gathering points where women chatted while collecting water. Children played and splashed, and travelers paused to wash their faces after long journeys. These water points were carefully regulated. Towns issued strict rules about washing clothes or animals too close to drinking wells, and guards or caretakers were often assigned to protect water purity, reflecting how seriously communities valued clean water in a world without pipes. Despite this, many towns struggled with contamination. Waste from streets flowed into open ditches, rains washed dirt into streams, and industries like tanning and dyeing polluted nearby rivers with chemicals that stained water bright colors and left strong smells lingering over the landscape. Yet even within this pollution, medieval people showed remarkable adaptability. They separated clean water zones from work water zones, choosing safer spots for drinking and washing, while leaving industrial activities downstream. Hygiene also appeared in marketplaces, where vendors cleaned their goods constantly. Fishmongers splashed water over their fish to keep them fresh. Bakers brushed ash from their ovens to avoid contaminating bread, and herb sellers washed hands with herbal water to maintain the pleasant scents that drew customers near. Even street food vendors practiced small forms of hygiene by covering pots with cloths to protect them from flies, a simple but effective method learned through experience rather than scientific understanding. One of the most surprising aspects of medieval public hygiene was how often people used communal spaces for personal washing. Many towns had designated washing platforms or wooden stages built near rivers, where women scrubbed clothes and men washed tools or even themselves. Bathing in rivers, though common, depended largely on weather and social norms. Men typically bathed in the open, while women chose secluded spots or washed privately inside homes. But during festivals, hot summers, or special occasions, entire communities might gather at riverbanks, turning hygiene into a social event filled with laughter, splashing, and shared relief from the heat. Medieval religious institutions played a major role in shaping public hygiene as well. Churches, encouraged cleanliness as an expression of spiritual purity, and monasteries often became centers of sanitation innovation. Monastic complexes had bathhouses, heated washrooms, washing basins, and even running water systems powered by gravity, making them far cleaner than most villages. Monks washed hands before every meal, bathed regularly, shaved heads frequently, and maintained their clothes with meticulous care, believing that cleanliness reflected inner discipline. Pilgrims who visited monasteries often enjoyed access to these facilities, creating rare moments of comfort during long, dusty travels. Towns also developed their own systems to manage waste, a critical aspect of public hygiene. Cesspits behind homes collected waste, and privies attached to houses emptied into deep pits that workers called gong farmers cleaned at night. These workers performed one of the most unpleasant jobs imaginable, descending into pits with buckets and scraping waste into carts to be hauled outside city walls before sunrise. Yet their work was essential to preventing disease and keeping towns livable. Trash collectors roamed streets at dawn, removing dead animals, broken goods, and rotting scraps left behind from markets. A constant effort to prevent infestations that might fill homes with rats, insects, and disease. Even rural villages had similar systems. Families dug small waste pits, used manure for fertilizing fields, and kept livestock separate from living spaces when possible, understanding through experience that proximity to filth caused sickness. Medieval laws reinforced public hygiene in ways that might surprise modern readers. Fines were issued for throwing waste into streets, for letting pigs roam freely, for dumping dirty water near wells, and even for leaving dead animals on roads. Towns hired inspectors to walk markets and ensure meat wasn't spoiled, bread wasn't contaminated, and fish were fresh enough to sell. Some cities built rudimentary sewer systems, channeling waste beneath streets, while others constructed raised walkways to help pedestrians avoid muddy, waste-filled roads during rainy seasons. Public bathhouses, where they still existed, were carefully monitored for cleanliness, and many communities celebrated cleaning days before major religious festivals, when people, shops, and streets were all scrubbed or swept in preparation for holy ceremonies. Public hygiene also intertwined with medieval medicine. People believed that clean air prevented disease, so they burned juniper, rosemary, sage, or frankincense in streets during outbreaks, filling towns with heavy, fragrant smoke believed to repel illness. In some places, city leaders ordered the removal of trash heaps or the spreading of herbs across public squares to reduce bad air, a belief rooted in the miasma theory, which held that disease spread through foul smells. Despite lacking modern scientific knowledge, these practices often provided real benefits. Smoke deterred insects, herbs masked dangerous odors, and cleaner streets reduced the presence of harmful waste. Communal hygiene wasn't just about survival, it was part of daily life, woven into the rhythm of medieval towns where cooperation made the difference between comfort and hardship. Even in the busiest marketplaces, where vendors shouted, horses clattered across cobblestones, merchants haggled loudly, and the smell of roasted food mixed with smoke and sweat, there was an unspoken understanding that dirt must be controlled, water must be valued, and public order must be maintained. And as night settled over medieval towns, lanterns flickered, streets quieted, and workers moved through narrow alleys, cleaning the remnants of the day. The world slowed once more, revealing a softer side houses with dim candlelight glowing through shutters, fountains dripping gently, and the faint scent of herbs drifting from windows, turning even the busiest town into a peaceful, sleepy place. In this world, hygiene wasn't about perfection. It was about balance, survival, tradition, and community, forming a slow, calming rhythm that shaped medieval life in ways both practical and quietly beautiful. As we continue drifting through the quiet, dusty pathways of medieval life, the idea of hygiene moves into an even broader space, one shaped by work, travel, and the countless little chores that filled every hour of the day, revealing how people managed cleanliness not just at home or in towns, but in the fields, on the road, inside workshops, and across long trade routes where dirt, sweat, mud, and weather constantly tested the limits of medieval comfort. For farmers, hygiene was built into the rhythm of nature. Before sunrise, peasants woke to the smell of damp straw and the warm breath of animals, and their first tasks often involved brushing down oxen, clearing manure, and sweeping stables. Chores that made personal cleanliness difficult, but also essential, because those who lived close to livestock quickly learned how easily disease spread when waste wasn't managed. Farmers washed their hands and arms at outdoor basins or wooden barrels, using cold water drawn from wells, and they cleaned their boots with sticks, scraping off mud and manure before entering homes. Women wore aprons not just for cooking but for filter, protecting outer clothes from dirt that would otherwise require time-consuming washing. In workshops, hygiene took different forms. Blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, and potters all developed their own habits to keep tools clean, floors swept, and workspaces free from hazards. Sparks from forges were controlled with sand, shavings were swept into piles, and water barrels stood at strategic points to wash soot or clay from hands. These early forms of industrial hygiene weren't about comfort, but about practicality and safety. A clean workshop meant better craftsmanship, fewer accidents, and healthier workers. Traveling across medieval roads introduced another world of hygiene challenges turned to mud with every rainfall. Carts splashed filth onto travelers, and inns ranged wildly from tidy, well-maintained establishments to cramped, smoky rooms filled with fleas, creaking beds, and straw that hadn't been changed in months. Travelers washed in cold streams along the roadside, cleaned boots by knocking them together, and brushed dirt from their cloaks using bundled twigs or rough cloth. Pilgrims who walked long distances often carried small hygiene kits, a wooden comb, a cloth for washing, a flask for drinking water, and occasionally scented herbs to mask the smell of sweat collected during weeks of travel. River crossings doubled as cleaning opportunities. People washed faces, hands, and sometimes even clothes while waiting for ferries or horses to drink. Merchants, who traveled through multiple towns, understood the value of cleanliness more than most. Appearing tidy was essential for earning trust. So they made efforts to wash before meeting clients, brushing dust from cloaks, rinsing hands in public fountains, and sometimes visiting bathhouses when available. Even soldiers maintained a surprising level of hygiene, not for comfort, but out of necessity. A dirty soldier risked infection, rashes, lice, outbreaks, and sickness that could spread through entire camps. Armies dug latrine trenches, burned waste, and washed clothing in rivers during long campaigns. Leather armor was oiled to prevent rot, and soldiers shaved or trimmed hair to reduce lice infestations. A practical and functional form of hygiene shaped by survival rather than vanity. Knightly culture also placed value on appearance. Squires cleaned weapons, polished helmets, brushed horses, and helped knights wash or change clothes before tournaments, knowing that a polished appearance reflected honor and discipline. In castles, hygiene blended practicality with protocol. Servants swept rushes, replaced straw bedding, aired out rooms by opening shutters, and burned herbs during feasts to cover the mixture of food, animals, and crowded bodies. Kitchens, often large and hot, required constant cleaning. Cooks scrubbed wooden tables with salt, rinsed pans with boiling water, and disposed of scraps in designated pits outside castle walls. Because castles housed large groups, hygiene regulations were strict. Animals were kept in specific courtyards. Waste was carried to cesspits far from living quarters, and laundry workers washed linens in castle moats or nearby streams, creating an entire workforce dedicated to keeping life bearable inside stone walls. Medieval hygiene also appeared in crafts connected to water, like tanning and dyeing, where workers who handled smelly substances used specific routines to keep themselves and their spaces from becoming unbearable. Tanners washed in designated work streams, using ash or coarse sand to scrub hands after handling hides soaked in unpleasant mixtures. Dyers rinsed fabrics in running water, turning rivers into colorful displays, but also ensuring that dyes didn't stick to skin or clothes. Bakers kept ovens clean with sweeping tools made from fresh greenery, and millers washed grain dust from their hands to avoid contamination, showing that even in the busiest industries, hygiene mattered. Hygiene extended into community spaces. In subtle ways, schools required students to wash hands with cold basin water before reciting lessons. Guild halls maintained clean benches for meetings, and inns offered guests washing bowls upon arrival, a simple yet important gesture of hospitality. On feast days, communities worked together to tidy public areas, sweeping streets, cleaning churchyards, and washing steps leading to important buildings. Festivals almost always began with washing. People arrived with freshly cleaned hands and faces, linen underclothes changed, and hair groomed for the occasion, showing that medieval people cared deeply about presenting themselves well when celebrating. Even funerals included hygiene rituals. Bodies were washed with warm water and herbs before burial, a practice rooted in spiritual and cultural respect. In rural areas, hygiene followed the seasons. Summer allowed for frequent washing in lakes and rivers, while winter pushed people toward dry cleaning methods like brushing, rubbing with cloths, and smoking clothes over fireplaces to kill insects. Shepherds kept their animals clean by clearing debris from wool and rinsing sheep in streams before shearing, not only improving wool quality, but also reducing pests. Fishermen washed nets in salt water, cleaned boats daily, and rinsed hands to remove strong smells before eating. Across every corner of medieval work-life fields, workshops, markets, roads, and camp's hygiene emerged not as an afterthought, but as a series of thoughtful habits that kept people healthy, respectable, and ready for the demands of their world. These routines, though simple, created a calming rhythm: the scrape of boots against stones, the splash of water at fountains, the sound of brooms sweeping dust, and the scent of herbs carried on slow medieval winds. Through these gentle, steady actions, medieval people formed a relationship with cleanliness that shaped their days and helped maintain a delicate balance between nature, work, and society. As the medieval day winds down toward evening, hygiene takes on a different rhythm, less about work, travel, or public display, and more about preparing the body and home for rest, reflecting an intimate understanding of comfort, health, and social expectation that, though far removed from modern practices, reveals a surprising sophistication in daily life. Within homes of all classes, people engaged in careful rituals. Floors were swept and strewn with fresh straw. Herbs like lavender, sage, and rosemary were scattered to absorb odors and deter pests, and beds were fluffed and aired to ensure a cleaner sleeping environment. Hands and faces were washed in wooden basins, and those who could afford warm water often infused it with fragrant herbs to relax muscles and soothe the senses, while children and servants helped care for younger or elderly family members, echoing the quiet routines of compassion and attentiveness that were essential to survival. Clothing, especially linen undergarments, was often changed at the end of the day, both to absorb sweat and maintain a layer of protection against the common presence of lice, fleas, and other pests that infested living spaces, demonstrating how hygiene and comfort were intertwined with modesty, practicality, and social norms. In castles and manor houses, evening hygiene extended beyond the individual. Servants carried out sweeping and dusting tasks. Firewood was prepared for stoves and hearths to dry damp areas, and private chambers were aired and perfumed, reflecting both aesthetic and health concerns. Monastic communities followed even stricter routines. After evening prayers, monks washed their hands and faces, combed their hair, and sometimes bathed before retiring to cells, all within a structured schedule designed to blend physical care with spiritual discipline. In towns and villages, the challenges of public hygiene did not disappear at night. Street sweepers often worked late to remove waste, and watchmen reminded households to secure refuse and manage animal enclosures, preventing hazards from festering overnight. Public bathhouses, where they existed, had already emptied, and the scent of herbs, smoke, and warm water faded as lanterns dimmed. Yet these spaces left a lingering impression on the community, as the routines and knowledge they provided trickled back into homes and private life. Hygiene also extended to dietary preparation for the night. Hands were washed before the evening meal. Leftover food was stored safely, hung from rafters, or placed in cool areas to protect it from rodents, and cooking implements were cleaned and laid aside for the next day, minimizing odors and contamination. Even in rural cottages, small but effective measures prevailed. Straw bedding was brushed. Herbs were tucked into pillows to encourage restful sleep and repel insects, and water basins were prepared for washing at dawn. ensuring that personal hygiene continued as a cyclical rhythm. Grooming rituals remained important. Hair was combed to prevent tangling and lice infestations. Nails were scraped or trimmed with small knives or pumice stones, and teeth were rubbed with cloths dipped in herbal powders or wine vinegar, reflecting a keen awareness of personal appearance and health despite limited resources. Across every medieval setting, the sensory environment was shaped by these hygiene routines: the earthy scent of straw and smoke, the faint fragrance of herbs, the soft lapping of water in basins, and the quiet movement of family members preparing for bed, all combining to create a calming, meditative end to the day. Hygiene was also a deeply social experience. Caring for children, assisting elders, preparing beds, and managing shared spaces demonstrated responsibility, empathy, and cooperation, reinforcing community bonds while ensuring the practical needs of survival. Even in the face of disease, pestilence, and harsh weather, these routines continued, reflecting centuries of accumulated wisdom about what maintained comfort, prevented illness, and promoted dignity within the constraints of medieval life. As night deepened, the sounds of daily activity faded, street noises dimmed, livestock settled, and homes grew quiet except for the occasional crackle of a hearth. In this lull, the cumulative effects of hygiene: clean hands, tended hair, aired bedding, swept floors, and fragrant herbs offered reassurance and a sense of order, subtly reinforcing health, well-being, and spiritual readiness for the next day. Despite the apparent hardships, medieval people lived within a surprisingly sophisticated system of cleanliness and care, where rituals, habits, and shared practices created a rhythm that balanced survival, comfort, and societal expectation. And as we imagine the soft flicker of candlelight in a small cottage, the warmth of a well-tended fire, the gentle rustle of straw, and the faint aroma of herbs in the air, the medieval world settles around us like a quiet, soothing lullaby, demonstrating that even in an era so different from our own, people sought order.com and care through the simple, deliberate acts of hygiene that shaped their lives, health, and dreams. As we continue our gentle, sleepy journey into medieval life, hygiene now takes center stage in the context of travel, disease, and daily routines that bridged the private and public spheres, revealing a world where every action, no matter how small, carried consequences for comfort, health, and social acceptance, and where the lines between cleanliness, superstition, and practicality blurred in fascinating ways. Traveling in medieval times presented unique hygiene challenges. Dirt, mud, dust, and sweat accumulated quickly on roads that were often uneven, crowded, or muddied by rain, while the constant movement of carts, animals, and pedestrians turned paths into swirling mixtures of soil, waste, and runoff, making every journey an exercise in managing personal cleanliness. Travelers relied on inns, rivers, and roadside fountains to wash hands and faces, rinse clothes, and refresh themselves, though facilities varied widely in quality and safety. Pilgrims on long religious journeys often carried small grooming kits, wooden combs, cloths, small basins, herbal sets, and flasks of water, and learned to ration bathing and cleaning according to available resources and weather. creating a rhythm of hygiene dictated by necessity rather than preference. Roads themselves were hubs of public hygiene activity. Inns maintained wash basins, horse stables required cleaning, and passing merchants sometimes hired local youth to sweep or clear mud from entrances, while local authorities occasionally fined travelers or residents for improper disposal of waste along the route, demonstrating a surprising awareness of public cleanliness. In towns, hygiene practices extended into both professional and social life, shaping how craftsmen, merchants, and laborers managed their bodies, workspaces, and public interactions. Blacksmiths and carpenters scrubbed hands, cleaned tools, and swept floors to prevent accidents and maintain quality work, while weavers, dyers, and tanners washed hands in running water or large wooden tubs to remove chemicals and stains. Even the humblest tradespeople understood that dirt could affect health, production, and reputation, and that visible cleanliness carried social weight. Markets, as the heart of urban life, were both sites of commerce and centers of hygiene regulation. Fishmongers splashed water on their products, bakers cleaned ovens, and butchers washed boards and knives repeatedly to prevent spoilage, while authorities inspected stalls for compliance with city ordinances. Festivals and feasts amplified the importance of public hygiene, as towns prepared for religious or seasonal celebrations by cleaning streets, removing waste, scrubbing steps, and airing out homes, while vendors and households alike took extra care with clothes, bodies, and cooking implements. Religious beliefs intertwined deeply with hygiene. Monks and nuns followed rigorous routines of washing, bathing, and grooming, and churches encouraged hand-washing and ritual cleaning as part of spiritual purity, creating a culture in which bodily care and moral cleanliness were linked in daily consciousness. Disease outbreaks influenced hygiene in ways both practical and ritualized. When plagues or fevers struck, towns imposed stricter cleaning routines, disinfected streets with water or vinegar, burned herbs to purify the air, and sometimes shut bathhouses to prevent contagion, blending superstition with experience-driven preventive measures, even without knowledge of germs. Medieval communities understood patterns of cleanliness and illness, observing that foul smells, stagnant water, and accumulated waste correlated with sickness. Rural hygiene practices followed seasonal and occupational rhythms. Farmers bathed and washed clothes in rivers when weather allowed, cleaned stables and barns, handled animals with care to avoid lice or disease, and maintained personal grooming to prevent rashes, sores, and pest infestations. Shepherds washed wool, removed dirt from tools, and bathed sheep in streams before shearing, while fishermen cleaned nets, rinsed their catch, and managed boats to reduce odor and decay. Hygiene in households combined practicality with ritual. Families swept floors, aired straw bedding, burned herbs to repel insects, and prepared water for washing, creating an environment where cleanliness was a continuous, mindful process integrated into everyday life. Clothing management was a cornerstone of medieval hygiene. Linen undergarments absorbed sweat. Woolen outer layers were brushed or aired, and garments were washed or smoked over fires to kill pests. Nobility had the advantage of servants to maintain elaborate hygiene routines, But even peasants learned to maximize available resources, using rivers, cloths, herbs, and ashes to remain as clean as circumstances allowed. Teeth were cleaned using herbal powders, chew sticks, or cloths. Nails were trimmed or scraped. Hair was combed, braided, or oiled. And bathing occurred in streams, tubs, or communal bathhouses, depending on season, class, and access. Public and private hygiene intersected in festivals, markets, inns, monasteries, and workshops, creating a network of practices that maintained order, comfort, and health in an unpredictable, often challenging environment. Even the simplest measures, sweeping rinsing hands, changing undergarments, airing straw, or burning aromatic herbs, had measurable effects on well-being, reflecting an intuitive understanding of cleanliness that, though lacking modern science, proved remarkably effective. By evening, routines shifted again to prepare the body and home for rest, hands and faces washed, beds refreshed with clean straw, herbs arranged to repel pests and promote comfort, and small basins of water ready for early morning use, while fires kept interiors dry and warm, and candlelight provided gentle illumination for final grooming tasks. Across towns, villages, castles, these cumulative practices created a rhythm of life that balanced the physical and spiritual, the practical and the ritual, providing a quiet sense of order in a world that might otherwise feel chaotic, dusty, and uncertain. And as we imagine the soft flicker of lanterns in alleys, the rustle of straw, the scent of herbs, and the gentle splash of water from basins, medieval hygiene emerges not as a set of rules imposed from above, but as a lived, breathing system that integrated the needs of body, community, and environment into the drowsy, soothing rhythm of daily life, guiding people gently and peace in a world so different from our own, yet strangely familiar in its careful attention to the little acts that make life livable. As we continue our slow, drowsy journey through medieval life, the subject of hygiene expands into the intricate routines that shaped family, work, and social interaction, revealing a world where every small act of cleanliness carried practical, social, and sometimes spiritual significance, and where personal and communal hygiene were intertwined in ways both subtle and profound. Within homes, hygiene was a carefully orchestrated daily rhythm. Floors were swept with straw or brooms. Hearths were cleaned, ashes removed, and the air scented with bundles of herbs such as lavender, rosemary, and sage to mask odors, repel insects, and maintain a sense of calm and order. Water basins, often wooden and filled from nearby wells or streams, were strategically placed for face washing and occasional foot cleaning, ensuring that even in cramped or rustic conditions, people could maintain a baseline of bodily clothing played a central role in hygiene. Linen undergarments absorbed sweat and oils. Woolen tunics were brushed or aired regularly, and garments were washed in rivers, boiled in large tubs, or smoked over fires to remove lice and pests, reflecting a complex understanding of how fabric hygiene protected the body. Children were instructed early in these routines, learning to wash hands before meals, comb hair, and assist in household cleaning, while elders guided and supervised these practices, integrating hygiene into the rhythm of family life. In workshops, hygiene was practical and necessary. Blacksmiths cleaned soot and grime from hands. Carpenters swept wood shavings. Weavers rinsed hands after handling dyes. And tanners scrubbed chemicals off their skin, creating an environment that maintained safety, efficiency, and a sense of respectability. Even minor lapses could have consequences, as dirt, pests, and debris could damage goods, spread illness, or lower a craftsman's reputation. Markets were another focal point for hygiene. Fishmongers splashed water over products. Bakers cleaned boards and ovens, and vendors rinsed utensils and swept stalls, all within a framework of social expectation reinforced by municipal ordinances that fined improper disposal of waste, littering, or selling spoiled goods. Hygiene was not only about disease prevention, but also about social status. Appearing unwashed or disheveled could indicate poverty, laziness, or poor moral character, while cleanliness demonstrated respect, discipline, and adherence to cultural norms. Festivals and religious occasions magnified this focus. Streets were scrubbed, homes aired, garments freshly laundered, hands and faces washed, and herbs burned to purify both air and spirit, creating a communal rhythm in which hygiene intertwined with celebration, spirituality, and social cohesion. Travel brought additional challenges. Pilgrims, merchants, soldiers, and nobles on the move had to adapt to unpredictable conditions. Washing in streams, using portable basins, or visiting inns and bathhouses where available, all while conserving resources and maintaining a presentable appearance. Pilgrims often carried small kits containing wooden combs, cloths, flasks of water, and aromatic herbs, reflecting an awareness that hygiene was essential not only for comfort, but also for health, respect, and spiritual readiness during long journeys. Soldiers on campaign managed hygiene with practical measures, digging latrines, cleaning hands and tools, trimming hair and beards to avoid lice, washing clothing in streams, and maintaining leather armor to prevent rot and infection. Understanding that a disciplined approach to cleanliness could prevent disease outbreaks in the close quarters of military life. Castles combined private and communal hygiene in highly organized ways. Servants maintained living quarters, kitchens, and stables. Waste was removed regularly from cesspit. Clothing and bedding were aired and washed, and herbs or smoke were used to manage odors and pests. Nobles, with access to warm baths and perfumed water, could indulge in elaborate routines, yet even modest households developed clever methods for maintaining cleanliness with limited resources, using rivers, ashes, herbs, and cloths to protect health and comfort. Hygiene was deeply informed by belief systems and medical theories. While people did not understand germs, they associated cleanliness with health, morality, and spiritual purity, leading to practices such as washing hands before meals, foot washing, bathing before religious festivals, and airing bedding to prevent miasma or bad air from causing illness. Seasonal rhythms dictated routines. Summer allowed for river baths, washing clothes outdoors, and airing straw bedding, while winter required dry cleaning methods, combing, rubbing with cloths, and using smoke to maintain cleanliness in the absence of warm water. Even in the midst of disease outbreaks, people-adapted streets were washed with water or vinegar. Herbs burned to purify the air. Bathhouses were regulated or temporarily closed, and community cooperation became critical to maintain health. The combination of private care, communal routines, and occupational hygiene created a subtle yet resilient system that sustained life, comfort, and social order in the medieval world, where every small act from sweeping the hearth to rinsing hands at a fountain, from brushing hair to changing linen, formed a rhythm that shaped daily existence. In the evening, homes and castles followed another layer of ritual. Floors swept and strewn with fresh straw, bedding fluffed herbs placed strategically to repel pests, basins of water ready for the morning, fires kept interiors warm and dry, and families or monastic communities washing hands and faces, combing hair, and performing final grooming tasks, closing the day with a quiet sense of order, health, and peace. These cumulative practices reveal a world where hygiene was not incidental but integrated into every facet of life work, social interaction, travel, spirituality, and domestic care, forming a slow, calming rhythm that allowed medieval people to navigate challenges, maintain dignity, and find comfort in the midst of a world so different from ours, yet bound by the universal need for cleanliness and care. The sounds of sweeping, the splash of water, the scent of herbs, and the soft rustle of linen and straw created a gentle, soothing backdrop, turning hygiene into both a practical necessity and a meditative, almost ritualistic component of everyday life that carried people from morning to evening, season to season, and year to year, crafting a deeply human, quietly comforting rhythm within the slow, drowsy pulse of medieval society. As the day slowly fades in medieval towns, villages, and castles, hygiene settles into a quiet, intimate rhythm, reflecting not only practical needs, but also social expectations, spiritual discipline, and the delicate balance between comfort and survival, offering a surprisingly rich and detailed portrait of life in an era without modern conveniences. Evening routines began with sweeping floors, spreading fresh straw over earth or stone, and placing bundles of aromatic herbs such as lavender, rosemary, and sage around living areas, not just for fragrance, but to deter pests, mask odors, and promote a calming atmosphere conducive to sleep and reflection. Water basins were prepared for washing hands, faces, and sometimes feet, using cold or, where possible, warm water infused with herbs or vinegar. These simple acts were repeated across households, inns, monasteries, and castles, underscoring the universality of hygiene practices in maintaining health, respectability, and spiritual purity. Families engaged in collective care. Parents assisted children in washing, combing hair, and changing undergarments, while older members guided the proper cleaning of tools, clothes, and bedding, creating a rhythm of shared responsibility that reinforced both practical hygiene and familial bonds. Clothing was carefully managed. Linen undergarments absorbed sweat, woolen tunics were brushed or aired, and outer layers were smoked or washed in rivers when possible, reflecting a keen understanding that fabric hygiene directly impacted personal comfort and pest prevention. In workshops and marketplaces, evening hygiene involved clearing floors, rinsing hands, and cleaning tools, with craftsmen recognizing that a clean environment not only ensured productivity, but also preserved health and reputation. Bakers washed boards and ovens. Blacksmiths brushed soot from floors and tools. Tanners rinsed hides, and weavers cleaned dyeing materials, while vendors in market stalls ensured products were tidy and appealing, blending hygiene with social expectation and professional integrity. In castles, servants oversaw the preparation of rooms for sleep, air circulation, removal of waste, and arrangement of fresh bedding, while nobles enjoyed access to perfumed water, warm baths, and private basins, creating a layered hierarchy of cleanliness that extended from private indulgence to collective household routines. Monastic communities observed particularly meticulous hygiene practices. After evening prayers, monks washed hands and faces, combed hair, and sometimes bathed, integrating cleanliness with spiritual discipline and reinforcing the connection between bodily care and moral or spiritual purity. Hygiene extended into religious ritual, foot washing before meals, hand washing before prayer, and washing bodies before burial or religious ceremonies highlighted the intimate relationship between cleanliness and faith, demonstrating that medieval people understood hygiene as both a physical necessity and a spiritual practice. Travel and pilgrimage added complexity. Travelers washed at rivers, fountains, and inns, carried herbal ways, and relied on portable basins, adapting to varying conditions while preserving dignity, health, and social decorum. Soldiers on campaign managed hygiene with trenches for latrines, washing routines for clothing and tools, and careful grooming to prevent lice and disease, showing that practical cleanliness was essential even under harsh, unpredictable conditions. Seasonal rhythms shaped hygiene. Summer allowed for river bathing and outdoor washing, while winter required dry cleaning, combing, and airing clothes near hearths to maintain comfort and cleanliness in cold, damp conditions. Even festivals and special events emphasized hygiene. Streets were scrubbed, homes aired, clothes freshly laundered, hands and faces washed, and herbs burned to purify the air, reflecting a community-wide understanding that cleanliness was both a protective and celebratory practice. Waste management was essential to hygiene. Cesspits were emptied, night soil removed, streets swept, and animals kept separate from living quarters, demonstrating an early recognition of environmental hygiene and its impact on health. The interplay of private care, occupational routines, communal obligations, and religious practices created a layered system of hygiene that supported well-being, social cohesion, and spiritual discipline, forming a rhythm of life where daily act sweeping, washing, combing, airing, bedding, changing garments, and burning herbs were interwoven with survival, comfort, and cultural expectation. Even in the face of disease, overcrowding, and the presence of pests, medieval people developed practical, adaptive strategies that maintained dignity and health, showing remarkable resilience and ingenuity. By nightfall, the cumulative effect of these routines, the soft rustle of straw, the flicker of candlelight, the gentle splash of water, and the faint scent of herbs, created a calming, almost meditative environment, transforming hygiene from a purely practical concern into a slow, soothing rhythm that guided the body, mind, and spirit toward rest. In this way, hygiene in the medieval world emerges not merely as a series of tasks, but as a lived, intimate, and communal experience, demonstrating that even without modern plumbing or sanitation, people understood the importance of cleanliness, ritual, and routine in shaping a safe, comfortable, and socially coherent world. And as we imagine the quiet cottages, bustling yet orderly castles, serene monasteries, and dusty market streets settling into night, the medieval day closes gently, bathed in the subtle, quiet rhythms of hygiene, offering not only a glimpse into practical life, but also a soft, calming lullaby that carries us gently into sleep. As we enter the final chapter of this slow, meditative journey through medieval hygiene, we see how daily routines, seasonal practices, public regulations, and personal habits all converged to create a rhythm of life that balanced health, comfort, and social expectation in ways both subtle and profoundly practical, revealing that even in a world without modern sanitation, medieval people were remarkably attentive to cleanliness and its effects on body, mind, and community. The day often began before dawn with personal care rituals. People washed their faces and hands in basins of cold water drawn from wells or streams, brushed hair with wooden combs, and attended to undergarments that absorbed sweat and protected outer clothing, creating a foundation of cleanliness that persisted through labor, travel, and communal life. Children learned early to follow these routines, assisted by parents or older siblings, while servants in noble households prepared warm water, herbs, and clean cloths to maintain a standard of hygiene that reflected both practicality and social status. Throughout the day, occupational hygiene was integral. Blacksmiths wiped soot from hands, carpenters swept shavings, weavers rinsed dyeing tools, bakers cleaned ovens and surfaces, and tanners scrubbed hides, showing that maintaining cleanliness was both a matter of survival and a marker of competence and professionalism. Markets were meticulously maintained. Fishmongers splashed water on their products. Bakers swept flour, and merchants rinsed utensils and handled goods with care, while municipal laws enforced standards, fining those who disposed of waste improperly or sold spoiled goods. Travel added complexity. Pilgrims carried portable basins, herbal sachets, and cloths to manage cleanliness on long journeys. Merchants washed in rivers or inns, and soldiers on campaigns dug latrines, washed clothing, and trimmed hair to prevent lice, demonstrating that hygiene was essential not only for comfort but also for health, morale, and social respect. Castles and monasteries exemplified layered hygiene practices. Servants swept, aired bedding, removed waste, and prepared water for hand washing and bathing, while nobles and monks incorporated fragrant herbs, perfumed water, and structured routines into daily life, blending personal care with ritual, spirituality, and comfort. Seasonal rhythms shaped behavior. Summer allowed river bathing, outdoor laundry, and airing of straw bedding, while winter required dry cleaning, combing, and smoke treatment to manage pests and moisture. Festivals and religious observances amplified hygiene, with streets scrubbed, homes aired, clothing freshly laundered, hands and faces washed, and herbs burned to purify air and reinforce social norms. Waste management remained a critical component. Cesspits were emptied, night soil removed, streets swept, and animals kept away from living areas, reflecting an intuitive understanding of environmental hygiene and its connection to health, even in the face of disease, dirt, and overcrowding. Medieval communities demonstrated resilience and ingenuity, adapting cleaning practices, regulating public spaces, and maintaining private routines to protect well-being and dignity. Evening hygiene closed the day with soothing, calming rituals, washing hands and faces, combing and braiding hair, changing undergarments, flapping and airing bedding, and scattering aromatic herbs to deter insects and freshen the air, all creating an environment that encouraged sleep, comfort, and mental tranquility. Personal grooming extended to teeth, nails, and hair, with herbal powders, chew sticks, pumice stones, and cloths, supporting a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of self-care and hygiene. Family and community interactions reinforced these practices. Children learned by example. Neighbors reminded each other of proper routines, and religious and civic authorities encouraged behaviors that maintained health and social harmony, integrating hygiene into the very fabric of medieval life. Public spaces, from market squares to streets and riverbanks, were actively managed. Vendors, town officials, and citizens swept, washed, and regulated waste, blending tradition, law, and practical necessity into a coherent system that supported survival, commerce, and daily life. Bathing, although less frequent than today, was a structured event, seasonal, ritualized, and sometimes social, with nobles enjoying warm, perfumed baths, monastic communities observing regular cleansing, and commoners utilizing rivers, streams, and public facilities where available, often integrating herbs, ashes, and soap substitutes to enhance cleanliness and comfort. The combination of private care, occupational hygiene, public management, religious ritual, and seasonal adaptation created a network of practices that, taken together, provided a surprisingly effective approach to health and well-being in a world without modern plumbing or sanitation. By nightfall, homes and castles, quiet streets, and monasteries were suffused with the soft sounds and smells of evening hygiene, the rustle of straw, the flicker of candlelight, the gentle splash of water, the aromatic scent of herbs, and the subtle movements of individuals completing their routines. These cumulative actions formed a meditative, almost soothing rhythm, a gentle cadence of care and order that helped people manage the challenges of daily life, maintain health, and experience a sense of dignity and calm. In reflecting upon these medieval hygiene practices through bathing, grooming, clothing care, household cleaning, occupational maintenance, public regulation, and ritual observance, we see a society deeply attuned to the interplay between environment, body, and social expectation, crafting a slow, intentional rhythm that nurtured both survival and comfort, even in the absence of modern scientific understanding. Medieval people developed effective, adaptive methods to keep themselves, their families, and their communities clean, healthy, and functional, demonstrating that hygiene in the past was far more sophisticated, deliberate, and essential than we often imagine. And as we imagine the quiet flicker of candlelight, the soft rustle of straw, the scent of herbs in the air, and the gentle lapping of water in basins, the medieval world closes around us in a comforting, sleep-inducing rhythm, revealing the subtle, patient, and surprisingly effective ways that humans have always sought comfort and well-being in their everyday lives. Continuing into the late hours of the medieval day, hygiene practices reveal a deeply ingrained awareness of cleanliness as a continuous, multi-layered process that touched nearly every aspect of life, from private routines to communal obligations, occupational care, and spiritual discipline, illustrating how medieval people maintained comfort, health, and social order without the convenience of modern plumbing or sanitation. Homes of all classes maintained a steady rhythm. Floors were swept with straw or brooms. Ashes from hearths were removed, fresh straw laid down, and aromatic herbs such as lavender, rosemary, and sage were scattered to deter insects and create a calming atmosphere, blending practicality with sensory pleasure. Water basins filled from wells or streams were ready for hand washing, face washing, and occasionally foot cleaning, with the careful management of water signaling, both concern for personal hygiene and a structured household routine that extended from children to the elderly. Clothing and bedding hygiene were central. Linen undergarments were changed regularly to absorb sweat. Woolen outerwear was brushed or aired to remove dust and insects, and outer garments were sometimes washed in rivers, boiled, or smoked over fires, demonstrating a sophisticated approach to maintaining fabric cleanliness despite limited resources. Occupational hygiene in workshops and marketplaces was rigorous. Bakers cleaned ovens and boards to prevent spoilage. Blacksmiths wiped soot from tools and hands. Tanners rinsed hides in running water, and weavers washed dyeing materials to ensure product quality and prevent contamination. Market hygiene was reinforced by municipal regulation, with inspectors ensuring that vendors handled goods safely. Streets were swept, and waste was properly disposed of, reflecting the communal importance of cleanliness in public life. Travel and pilgrimage required adaptability. Pilgrims carried combs, cloths, water flasks, and herbal sachets to manage cleanliness on long journeys. Merchants washed at inns or rivers, and soldiers on campaigns dug trenches for waste, washed clothing and tools, and groomed themselves to avoid lice and disease, demonstrating that hygiene was both functional and socially significant. Castles and monasteries exemplified layered hygiene routines. Servants prepared rooms for sleep, cleaned floors, aired bedding, and managed water for washing, while nobles and monks integrated fragrant herbs, perfumed water, and ritualized practices, blending comfort, cleanliness, and spiritual discipline. Seasonal cycles shaped practices. Summer allowed bathing in rivers, laundering outdoors, and airing bedding, while winter required dry cleaning, combing, and smoke treatments to maintain comfort and control pests, showing an intuitive understanding of environmental influence on hygiene. Festivals and religious observances magnified the importance of hygiene. Streets were scrubbed, homes aired, clothing freshly laundered, hands and faces washed, and herbs burned to purify air and enhance the atmosphere, reflecting a communal approach to cleanliness as both protective and celebratory. Waste management was a constant concern. Cesspits were emptied, streets swept, night soil removed, and animals kept separate from living areas. demonstrating early practices of environmental hygiene linked to health and public safety. Even amidst disease, overcrowding, and the presence of pests, medieval communities demonstrated remarkable resilience, adapting cleaning routines, regulating public and private spaces, and educating household members in effective hygiene practices to maintain dignity, health, and social cohesion. Evening routines reinforced these lessons. Hands and faces washed, hair combed and braided, bedding fluffed, herbs arranged to repel insects, and basins of water readied for the following day, creating a calm, predictable rhythm that prepared both body and mind for rest. Personal grooming extended to teeth, nails, and hair, often with herbal powders, chew sticks, pumice, stones, or cloths, reflecting a surprisingly detailed understanding of care that contributed to overall well-being and appearance. The social dimension of hygiene was evident in family and community life. Children learned from parents, neighbors reinforced good practices, and religious or civic authorities promoted cleanliness as both moral and practical duty. Weaving hygiene into the cultural fabric, public spaces were actively managed. Streets, market squares, and riverbanks were swept and washed, tools and goods maintained, and community members participated in cooperative cleaning activities, blending civic responsibility, social expectation, and tradition. Bathing, while less frequent than today, remained structured and significant, particularly among the nobility and monastic communities, who used warm water, herbs, and perfumed oils, while commoners bathed seasonally in rivers, streams, or public facilities using ash, herbs, or soap substitutes to enhance cleanliness. The cumulative effect of these routines, occupational, communal, and ritualized, formed a slow, soothing cadence in medieval life, a rhythm that balanced health, comfort, social propriety, and spiritual observance. The evening atmosphere was infused with sensory details: the rustle of straw, the gentle splash of water, the flicker of candlelight, and the faint scent of herbs, combining to create a meditative environment that signaled the end of the day and encouraged rest. Through the careful management of water, clothing, bedding, personal grooming, household chores, occupational hygiene, public regulation, and ritual observance, medieval people demonstrated an intuitive, adaptive, and remarkably effective system of cleanliness that supported survival, comfort, and dignity in an unpredictable, often harsh environment. In imagining these quiet evening routines across cottages, castles, monasteries, and market streets, we perceive hygiene not merely as a practical concern, but as a central, integrated rhythm of medieval life, one that gently guided body, mind, and community through the challenges of daily existence and offered a comforting, sleep-inducing pattern that resonates with our innate appreciation for order, calm, and care. As the final part of our journey through medieval hygiene unfolds, we find that the routines, rituals, and practices of cleanliness were far more sophisticated, deliberate, and culturally integrated than modern observers often realize, shaping every aspect of life from personal care to communal interaction, occupational routines, spiritual discipline, and public regulation, creating a slow, reassuring rhythm that carried medieval people through the demands of daily life and into the quiet of night. Evening hygiene routines extended across all social classes, beginning with the simple yet essential tasks of washing hands and faces in wooden basins filled from wells, rivers, or public fountains, combing hair to prevent tangling and lice, and preparing bedding by fluffing straw, changing linen, and placing aromatic herbs such as lavender, rosemary, and sage to deter pests and provide calming scents. Children learned these habits under the watchful guidance of parents, siblings, or servants, integrating hygiene into the early development of discipline, responsibility, and social awareness. Clothing hygiene remained central. Linen undergarments were changed regularly to absorb sweat and prevent skin irritation. Woolen tunics and cloaks were brushed or aired to remove dirt, and outer garments were washed in rivers or smoked over fires, reflecting a practical understanding that fabric cleanliness directly impacted comfort, health, and social presentation. Occupational hygiene in workshops and marketplaces continued into the evening, with bakers scrubbing boards and ovens, blacksmiths cleaning soot from tools and floors, weavers rinsing dyeing implements, tanners cleaning hides, and vendors washing utensils and stalls, blending practicality with social expectation and public responsibility. Market and street hygiene were reinforced by municipal laws. Improper disposal of waste, spoiled goods, or unclean stalls could incur fines, demonstrating the communal investment in cleanliness and health, and highlighting the social importance of appearing clean and respectable. Travel and pilgrimage added a dynamic element to hygiene. Travelers carried portable basins, flasks of water, herbal sachets, and cloths, adapting to rivers, inns, and public washing areas to maintain personal cleanliness, while soldiers on campaign dug latrines, cleaned tools, washed clothing, and trimmed hair to prevent lice and disease. Understanding that hygiene was vital for health, morale, and social interaction in communal settings. Castles and monasteries exemplified layered and organized hygiene routines. Servants cleaned floors, aired rooms, removed waste, and prepared water for washing, while nobles and monks incorporated herbs, perfumed water, and ritualized grooming practices, combining comfort, cleanliness, and spiritual discipline into daily life. Seasonal influences guided routines. Summer allowed river bathing, outdoor laundering, and airing of bedding, while winter required dry cleaning, combing, and smoke treatment to maintain hygiene and manage pests, reflecting an intuitive understanding of environmental impacts on health. Festivals and religious observances amplified hygiene practices. Streets were scrubbed, homes aired, garments laundered, hands and faces washed, and herbs burned to purify the air, highlighting the connection between social celebration, spiritual readiness, and cleanliness. Waste management was central to both private and public hygiene. Cesspits, streets swept, night soil removed, and animals kept away from living spaces, demonstrating practical solutions to environmental and public health concerns. Even in the face of disease outbreaks, overcrowding, and pest infestations, medieval people displayed resilience and adaptability, modifying cleaning routines, regulating shared spaces, and educating household members to maintain dignity, health, and social cohesion. Evening rituals created a calming environment, hands and faces washed, hair combed, bedding arranged, herbs scattered to repel insects and freshen the air, and water basins prepared for the following day, all contributing to a gentle rhythm that soothed the body and mind. Personal grooming extended to nails, teeth, and hair, often using herbal powders, chew sticks, pumice stones, or cloths, demonstrating a surprisingly comprehensive understanding of self-care and hygiene. Family and community life reinforced these habits. Children learned by observing adults. Neighbors reminded one another of proper routines, and religious or civic leaders promoted cleanliness as a moral and practical duty, integrating hygiene deeply into the culture. Public spaces were actively maintained. Streets, market squares, and riverbanks were swept and washed. Tools and goods were cleaned, and citizens participated in cooperative efforts to maintain order and cleanliness, blending civic responsibility with practical necessity. Bathing, while not daily, remained structured and culturally significant, particularly among nobility and monastic communities, with warm water, herbs, and perfumed oils enhancing cleanliness and comfort, while commoners relied on seasonal bathing in rivers or communal facilities, using ashes, herbs, and soap substitutes where available. The cumulative effect of these private, occupational, communal, and ritualized hygiene practices formed a meditative, calming cadence that balanced health, comfort, and social cohesion, creating an almost sleep-inducing rhythm that guided people through their day and into night. The sensory environment, trussling straw, splashing water, flickering candlelight, and aromatic herbsry enforced a sense of calm, safety, and well-being, transforming hygiene from a practical necessity into a gentle, soothing ritual. Reflecting on these practices, it becomes clear that medieval hygiene was far more intentional, adaptive, and culturally integrated than often assumed, combining personal care, household maintenance, occupational routines, public responsibility, and spiritual discipline into a cohesive system that sustained both body and community. As we imagine cottages, castles, monasteries, and market streets settling into quiet night, with the soft glow of candlelight illuminating clean floors, arranged bedding, and washed hands, the medieval world closes around us in a comforting rhythm, revealing that even in an era without modern sanitation, the pursuit of cleanliness, comfort, and health was deeply human, methodical, and intimately tied to the fabric of daily life, leaving a soft, lulling imprint that carries us gently toward sleep.